Thank you so much, Colin, for joining Scale Engine. If you can introduce yourself and tell a little bit about yourself so our audience, that would be great.
I'd be happy to do so. I'm a serial tech entrepreneur. Been doing it for about 30 years. Learned a lot of lessons along the way. And 10 years ago, spoke at MIT to talk to a group of entrepreneurs. And from there, that became the genesis of the book Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. The book has been a top 10 seller on Amazon for 2 years now, for starting a business and entrepreneurship and small business. And the book itself has won over 37 global awards. And this for our team is something because we put a lot of work into this book. We interviewed over 200 people. About 50 of those interviews made the book. Uh, we have 77 chapters. Each chapter is very digestible. We actually wrote it for the ADHD entrepreneur. Very, very simple and easy to take. And a lot of experiences, a lot of interesting stories, a lot of failures we talk about in the book, and then what the lessons are learned from those failures and how we can apply them. But ultimately, it's gone further than probably any other book when it comes to cracking the code of what it takes to be a serial entrepreneur. And what interviewing all of the serial entrepreneurs and getting their stories and understanding from them, that was critical in the book as well.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's very hard for to find a proven formula in this entrepreneurship journey, and you have managed to catch that. So, if you can summarize that formula in 3 to 5 sentences, that would be great for our audience.
All right, so the formula start, scale, exit, repeat really should the book title should have been start, scale, uh, exit, take some money off the table, repeat. And the real genesis came in my 20s when I started a number of companies. One of them went public, and we bungled the exit. We spent 10 years building the company, and we bungled the exit. The company actually, after selling it, went to over $1 billion in market cap. It was a combined entity. It was a merger. We were the public entity, and unfortunately, we had the dot-com crash. We did not control it, and I had the shares that were trading at $19 a share. I ended up selling for 6 cents a share, and I mean, it was painful. I mean, let me tell you that I was about 29 years old and I had about 130, $140 million of publicly traded stock, and it all evaporated because we were locked up for a number of months, and then the dot-com crash happened. Bad things do happen, and it made me realize that there are these cycles that exist within markets. And the IPO window opens, the IPO window closes. We hear about those concepts. And so can we actually track it? Can we actually model it? We actually have the time to sell index on our startup.club newsletter that's published once a month. And we look at 25 years of IPO data. And it's really a sentiment index. It's pretty low right now. It's actually bounced off the bottom. It's bounced pretty nicely compared to the last 2 years. I think it's about 35 out of 100 right now, which means it really is a buyer's market still. It's a tough market for entrepreneurs. It's a tough market for businesses. I know there's some exceptions with in the LLM AI world, and there's data center world. There's some exceptions in every market. There's going to be exceptions, but the reality is the sentiment in the marketplace is down right now, and that means valuations are depressed. High interest rates and that kind of stuff. So I learned this lesson from this debacle of our exit, and my brother and I launched another company. It became the fastest growing company in Canada at the time. The first one we had that we blew up is the third fastest growing company in Canada. So this one became the fastest. And we took that one public in 2006 and sold that one to a Fortune 500 company. And this time we did it for all cash. All
If
right.
you didn't mind, what was the
Ironically,
company?
Dev, we sold it a month before the Lehman crisis. And
Wow,
3 years
that's
ago, 3 year, and then it went for $4.55 a share below our IPO to $10.55 a share. And last year, or not last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we sold before the 2022 tech wreck. I think we sold in 2022. Months before it, we sold to GoDaddy, our last company, which was a domain extension, an alternative to .com, .net. It was called .club. And that's something that we sold, just months before that next crisis hit. So bad things do happen. And in the thesis of the book is that really we're entrepreneurs, that every entrepreneur is a tradesman or tradesperson, and we have to learn the trade. And if we can learn that trade, we can excel at it. But we are simply tradespersons. We're not CEO of this company or that company. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs like to fall in love with their companies and they turn into lifestyle companies. But I make the argument in the book that you can start, scale, exit, take some money off the table, repeat, and build wealth at a much faster, more reliable way because bad things do happen.
Yeah.
Do go negative. We've seen how many times have we seen companies falter? Here's an interesting statistic for you. 75% of venture capital backed companies actually fail. 75%. So you think you hit the lottery when you got the venture capital, but 75% of those, three to four, will fail. So you haven't hit you know what I mean? It's a very different methodology or thinking or mindset around the idea of starting a business, scaling it, becoming an expert at scaling that business, exiting it, and then doing it in the same lane, maybe the same type of business, or maybe it's a parallel business or a business that you saw when you're within your other businesses. Um, and 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 be able to do that when, be able to start the company, scale it. I actually start, scale, get bored, start the next business, then exit the core business that is running like a Swiss clock because you don't run it anymore. You have leaders running it, and then launch the new business. And I've made a connection all the way back to 1993. My first bulletin board service, it was like a BBS. You'd connect, and then that became we launched an ISP out of that, internet service provider. We launched a hosting and email cloud SaaS company in 2000s. When I was there, we learned about new domain extensions, so we launched .club when it launched in 2012, and we launched a company called Geeks for Less in 2003, which has 800 employees now, and all these companies were launched within existing companies. So you're beginning to see the repeat factor. But the key here to this concept is you cannot ignore your core business. Your core business is the most important thing. And and you'll know when you're ready to start thinking about other businesses, when you start getting bored, when people are already running it for you, you don't even need to be at the office anymore. Then you could start thinking, hey, maybe we should consider another business. But you got to let your people run that core business and maximize the benefit you can get from that. So there is a caveat to this. Like, a lot of serial entrepreneurs get focused on too many different directions. Yeah.
Wow, that's a great amount of insight for our audience. Like and again for me, like I learned just so much from that. I completely do agree with the fact that 75% of VC that startups fail because I like met a couple of the biggest VCs in the world through Y Combinator. I went there, meet them, met Sam Altman and those bigger VCs over there as well. And I met how many people are just waiting for VC funding to start something rather than just starting their own company, the idea they are having. And they don't know when the VC funding comes, it comes with a bigger expectation of a 10x, 20x return. So that expectation has a huge weight. So that is a great, thank you so much for mentioning that.
And
So
90% of companies on the Inc. 5000 don't have any VC funding.
yeah, and that is the thing. Like, why can't you like? It's so weird for me for people not starting because they don't have a VC funding. It's kind of a very I can't fathom it. So it's still very like weird to me.
Yeah, I'm not going to deny the fact that Silicon Valley isn't the best ecosystem in the world for creating companies and wealth. Okay, I will definitely say that that exists, but there are some downsides to it. There's a lot of carnage along the Silicon Valley highway. And I coined a phrase in one of my articles that I wrote called Silicon Valley disease, where a company, and I used WeWork as one of the companies I was using as the example in this one, where too much funding from VCs can actually corrupt the culture of a company and, that the scrappy nature of it and actually, take a company down. And in the case of WeWork, that was an interesting case study to see what happened there with too much money. But I've seen it happen over and over again with a lot of people who do get funding because venture capitalists have this thing called liquidation preference. They get paid first.
Yeah.
And your company does okay, they get paid first. If your company does maybe not so okay, but still there's some good residual value, they get all the money first. And if the company takes off, then you get a piece of the takeoff. But it's almost like they don't take any risk when they come in. And I've always been a critic of the model. Now, that being said, there are opportunities and reasons why you would do venture capital. I've done venture capital myself, especially if you're in an industry that's moving very, very quickly. But not all businesses require venture capital. And I think you have to sort of get the right funding for the right type and for the right timing and the right situation, which is one of the chapters in the book as well.
Yeah, that is great. I am actually planning on reading the whole book, and I actually have went through some of the book summary on YouTube, some of the podcasts in the last couple of days. So I will definitely go through that. So now let's come to the next part of the same thing that we're talking, is that if a person does not take VC funding and they started a company, maybe a service company, maybe a small SaaS company, how do you want them to scale in today's world? Like, because you have so many experience from the past, so you know there's some formula in it that we are not new as a newbies, we don't see it.
Yeah. And, there is a formula. That's actually the largest section of the book. And when you go from start mindset to scale mindset, it is a whole different beast. And by the way, the vast majority of companies in America, the Western world, fail to scale. I'm gonna throw that out there. I mean, I'm talking like 90% plus fail to scale. And so you have to wonder, why is that when it's more formula based. I think my sense is that start phase of a business is more intuition and gut instinct and hands-on, where scale's more about the processes. This was 2006. I mentioned we had sold to a Fortune 500 company. That same company, 2 years earlier, I was 36 years old or 35, and I was CEO of the company. A board member came to me and said, "Look, we're going to have to look at getting a professional CEO." And our venture capital were on the board as well. And I did not have control or majority control of the board through my shares. Um, so I called a lifeline, and we were public at the time. Our sales were flatlining. We're going through a really tough time. And actually, there's a company up in Charlotte or Durham called Rhythm Systems, and the CEO is Patrick Tian. And he called me up, I called him up, and he said, "Let's meet." We met in Vegas at an event. And I said, "I just got to get the board off my back. You just got to get him off my back." Because I had done everything up to that point by instinct. Okay. And then he said, "Well, I'm not going to work with you, Colin, unless you do it all." It's almost like you go to the doctor and you say, I'd like to get uh, I'd like to get a pill to lose weight. But I don't want to change my lifestyle. I don't want to do any exercising. Just give me no, this was sort of like that. And he says, "No, if you're going to do this, you got to do this properly." And so we launched, and I couldn't believe what happened. Within 90 days, we started seeing huge results. We started doing 2-day strategic planning, 88 days of execution. We launched daily sales huddles. Uh, we launched, sorry about that. We launched daily sales huddles. We launched goal setting, 3-year goal, 1-year goal for the company, quarterly goal for the company, individual goals, 3 to 5 key individual goals that were smart, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. And the company started to take off. And these were all these systems that I never knew about as an entrepreneur that we could implement. So we've done that. We've put together in the section of the books to scale the most comprehensive scale book or guideline, including everything from strategic planning to hiring the right type of people. Because it really comes down to 4 things. It comes down to story, people, money, and systems. And the story in scale, we talk about coming up with your X factor. This is when you put your startup into turbo, like your turbo drive just kicks in, right? And that's having something unique and different that none of your competitors have. Think Domino's Pizza, 30 minutes are free. They're today the largest pizza company in the world. Think National Car Rental, just show up and go. They're the leading car rental company in the world right now. Uh, these companies that can find this X factor, and we did it with with that company that I mentioned a minute ago, where we became the best in the world at migrations, website email migrations, and we started winning contracts from big telecoms Eventually, we won one big one, and then after that, every single contract went to us. AT&T, Vodafone, British Telecom. We won almost every contract in the world for hosting email and websites through telecoms, and that came because we had our X factor. Our X factor was we're the best in the world at doing migrations. We had hundreds of people in Ukraine. Not only did we write the best heuristics and software to do the migrations, but we also had hundreds of people manually checking over every single website, every single click, because we came up with an unbearable brand promise. And that unbearable brand promise that makes you sick was if we lose a website in a migration, then we'll pay you fair market value for that website. See, in that industry, the people who made the decision were mid-level executives, and their number one concern was getting fired. Number two, getting promoted, but number one's getting fired. And migrations are famous for getting fired. So we became the best in the world at it. That became our X factor, and we dominated. It became a series of dominoes began to fall. So you've got the story. You got to think about your story and how the story changes, right? Think of Blockbuster. They didn't change the story. They're a DVD company. Think of Netflix. They're a DVD company, but no, they're not. They're an entertainment company. Where's Blockbuster Day? Where's Netflix? Absolutely, right? You think of how the story changes when you want to scale. Even Amazon, how they were, just a book company in a garage, and then he became more than a book retailer. So the story needs to change sometimes in order to scale. The people, and this is the most important thing, I think, is the number one thing holding back most people from scaling is themselves. You'd be surprised, Dev. It's themselves because they are the ones who drive the sales. They're the bottleneck in their organization. Um, so we have a chapter in the book called personality profiling, and we suggest people do that for themselves. We actually have a GPT on this one too. So if
Yeah.
you want to go to it, it's called personalityprofileai.com. And it's a free personality profile. It does just answer the questions. It'll give you a disc profile, it'll give you a Myers-Briggs, and it'll compare you with a celebrity to see what your profile is. But I suggest that you do that, and then you identify the positions you want in your company to scale 10x, and who are the individuals and what personality profiles do they have? What skill sets do they have? And we want to hire a team based on that. And so we're moving from this concept and start called delegating tasks to scale, which is delegating responsibilities, not just tasks. And that's a mindset change. So we talk about the story, we talk about the people. We've already talked about the money. You got to get the right money for the right situation. Although I will say one of my favorite chapters in Scale is I interviewed John Mullins, who wrote the book Customer Funded Startup. And in that book, it's all about using the customer's money, whether it's annual payments, prepayments, whatever it is, to help fund your startup. Because although you may have to give a lot to your customer, in some ways it's the cheapest way to finance your business.
Is
Um,
the best one
it is.
for a new person.
I like it, and there's a lot of techniques we talk about in the book to use your customers to help fund the business. And then the last is systems, and I've covered the systems well. The strategic planning, the goal setting, the daily sales huddle, the and how each of those work out. Like how do you run a daily sales huddle? And we break that down in the book.
Perfect. That is like so much. I am fairly certain that once this episode is aired, our audience will get so much value out of it and will understand what it actually takes. Actually, I was going through your the blogs, and there in some podcast you mentioned the disc as well, and I personally know my Myers-Briggs as well because I've been doing it for like last 5 years. So I know my Myers-Briggs, I don't know my disc, so I have to go and check it. Like, what is that?
Yeah, and the concept's pretty simple. It doesn't matter which one you use, but really you've got, multiple four personality types. There's probably a few more if you want to get into it with Myers-Briggs, but
Yeah,
but the reality is you've got dominance, you got influence, think of that social person. Like Captain Kirk was a DI, he was very social, but he was also
yeah,
very dominant, right? And then you got Spock, who's very analytical. He's the analytical personality, which is C. And then you've got the S as well. Spock was probably an SC because you typically have multiple personalities and
yeah.
some of your traits. Um, but but you've got that. And so if you want to hire a head of sales or someone who's really good at sales, you're going to want to hire somebody who's got that high influence, but also maybe someone who's dominant as well. And if you're going to want to hire somebody at operations, you're going to want to hire someone who has the steadiness and maybe analytical skills. But again, when we're talking about hiring leaders, we're going to want that dominant trait in there. All right.
Yeah,
So we're going to look for the dominant plus something. Accountant, we'll go with a dominant plus S, a DS, a dominant and stable. And then with a operations, maybe a DC. I happen to be a DC. DC's entrepreneurs are more rare than DIs. The reason why that DIs, dominant influence, is because most businesses start as the entrepreneur is the salesperson, and
yeah,
that's how
that's
they start. But they're also the group. They're the largest percentage of entrepreneurs, but they're also the group that fail to scale the most because they can't get beyond themselves. They have that personality, and they're always the one doing the deals, and they're the bottleneck. And they've got to find, by the way, an operator to back them up. And I know some really great DIs that just have never really succeeded because they just don't have the operators to back them up. So it's all about the personality and finding the right position and delegating responsibilities to those leaders and letting them run the company. And then you go into exit phase. It's a whole exit mindset. It's a whole new mindset. And that's all about giving up your company, letting somebody else run it, and you go do something else. And while it's growing and building, you sell it at the right time when the market's strong.
Do you think the exit is more about timing or the more about the growth, like the growth phase of your company? Like, okay, my company has grew to this revenue, and this is almost the right time that I want to figure out selling.
I'd like to say that it's all about the company, it's all about the performance of the company, but the reality is timing is more than 50% of the value. And in some cases greater than that. Like, I told you about my story there that where this, billion-dollar company, went from, I don't know, whatever billion down to like 10 million, whatever it was. And that's a big fall, but the Nasdaq had fallen 5,000 from 5,000 to 1,100 that year. And can you imagine the stock market falling by 75%? Holy shit.
That's crazy.
I know. I mean, can you imagine that? And we saw a little bit of that in the 2020 tech wreck, right? But
Yeah,
22 tech wreck and crypto crash. But the reality is, yeah, the reality is we have I'm trying to get my words here right about this,
yeah,
but anyway, we have to think about the exit as well. We have to be continue to think about the exit all the time and understand how to position this company for exit. If some of those e-commerce companies, I was going to say, like some of those brands, like we have e-commerce companies in our portfolio here, and they've fallen. Like, you think of a Bark went from 4 billion down to 100 million. Casper and all these brands, and had we sold 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we would have gotten a much higher multiple for our company in the tens of millions of dollars. Now it's like low 10, it's a lower figure. It's probably about one quarter to one fifth the figure. Yet the company's stronger today. So does it matter? Does the company matter? Does the timing matter? Absolutely, the timing matters. And also the metrics are different now. Back in 2022, people were looking at revenue multiples for e-commerce companies. One times revenue. Now they're looking at 4 to 6, 4 to 7 times earnings at the high end.
that
And
is
it's totally different. So timing does matter, and there's a lot of techniques you can use in exit to prepare for exit, and those are all broken down in the book.
yeah. I actually like I was like going through some of the podcasts and some of the book review and book summaries over the YouTube, and I was like, okay, this person knows exactly how to operate a private equity company better than anyone. It's kind of like your own like formula to keep making private companies and like maybe let it go to IPO, let it go to like selling it. It's like that is the whole idea of the entrepreneurism, like serial entrepreneurism, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and also, so it's not just timing; it's who you sell to, right? And so, creating that list, there are three types of buyers. There are really um, the cash flow buyer, almost like private equity. Then you've got the competitors, and then you've got strategic buyers. Your last, you really don't want to be selling to cash flow because that's all you're going to get. It's just the cash flow of your company times X, so whatever it is, discounted rate. If you sell to your competitors, you can sometimes get some economies of scale, and your competitor is not going to give you a full benefit of that, but they'll give you a part of that. But if you sell to a strategic buyer where you can sell their products, they can sell yours, and it creates a huge lift for the entire entity, then you're going to get a much higher multiple. And again, you're not going to get the whole benefit of the arbitrage, but you'll get a portion of that arbitrage. So you're going to want to look for a strategic buyer, and having that exit mindset starts from day one. When we started .club, we said, "Oh, we want GoDaddy to buy this company," and 10 years later, GoDaddy bought the company. And there were
That is
things that we
good.
did along the way, such as conferences, meeting them, and really connecting with them, getting to know them. And it was actually took about 2 years to sell because we kept having meetings, and there's a
Yeah,
whole technique that we use. I break it down in the book anyway.
yeah.
So
I will definitely go through it because I want to know more about it. But I want to, because we have only 10 minutes left, I want to go through the last question, which I think would be extremely valuable. For the startup club, like, how do you think what do you think the future is looking like in 1 to 2 years? Like right now, it is already, I heard it's already has a million member, something like that. So is that the growth rate that you are planning on in the future?
well, we have about a million Clubhouse, about 950,000 Clubhouse members. We have about 70,000 on YouTube. We have about 10,000 emails, and we have 10,000 LinkedIn. So well, for us, and TikTok too. I shouldn't forget TikTok and Instagram and
Yeah,
Facebook. But, we have a lot of members in all these different platforms, and it's been expanding. It's been expanding. But for us, it isn't about numbers, it's about engagement. How many people can we actually help? What are the numbers of individuals who we can actually make a difference on this planet with? We don't charge anything at Startup Club. Everything is free. It's a free resource. This is my way of giving back. I've been very successful in my career. Um, and this is my way of giving back, and we love doing it. We're looking for guest authors for Startup Club. If you have an expertise and you wanted to do an article, the good news about Startup Club right now, the website, it's getting top billing on Google. Like any article gets the front page of Google, which is really pretty cool. So, for instance, if you type in how to write a best-selling business book, my article is one of the first that pops up on Startup Club, and that gives you an example of the power of the Startup Club. So it's really about creating an engaged user base, and with that user base being able um, to create a community that all comes together and helps each other out. And it's
that's
it's
great.
taking off. It's taking off. It's growing in a different way. I mean, Clubhouse, I'll be quite frank, it was a good shot to get it started, but it was sort of a point of like leaping off from Clubhouse, I mean, because we started to move out of Clubhouse and getting into this. We do a monthly newsletter I mentioned, and that monthly newsletter is loaded. It's a masterclass on a particular topic. This month coming up, my topic is going to be on. I'll be writing an article on this one for Entrepreneur Magazine, but also for this newsletter on my next book. And the next book, the title for the next book, I don't know if I've mentioned it on a podcast before. This might be a new one. Like this
I
kid,
would be honored.
I did mention it on LinkedIn. I had 35,000 views on my mention of this. But the title for the next book is Catching the Next Tech Wave from Internet to AI. And talks about all of the experiences that I've had and the stories I've had trying to catch those waves, but also we're going to interview some very prominent individuals who've experienced that and who've lived through the tornado, as Jeffrey Moore called it. I had the opportunity to interview Jeffrey Moore, who wrote Crossing the Chasm for the book Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. In chapter 3, we call it is Catching the Wave. So I want to go a lot more in depth in that, and we'll be spending about 2-3 years putting that together and getting it out. We do have a Start workbook that came out, and that Start workbook is loaded with great stuff. It's probably the most comprehensive startup checklist you'll ever see in a booklet. It's on Amazon. We sell it for $10. It's a physical book. It's got QR codes. It's got 10 GPTs like the one I mentioned to you,
Yeah,
personalityprofileai.com. It's got 10 GPTs throughout. It's got all these exercises to help you get your business started. You just sit down with it and just start working on the booklet, and you create a 4 sticky note business plan, which is a strategic business plan. It helps you walks you through that whole path. It has the ultimate chart checklist. It's also got deep dives for every chapter of the book, every inch start. So you can actually read a chapter in the book and start, and then listen to a deep dive. We use the AI. I can't remember the Google one we use there, but it's pretty cool. So it's got a lot of resources. It's a good companion piece, and the scale workbook, which we've been spent almost a year now working on, is going to
I
launch in
am I am going to push
January.
that so much for our audience on the YouTube description, on the comments everywhere. I
Awesome.
am like, thank you so much, Colin, for joining us today. I really want to talk to you for next 2 hours because I have so many questions. But the time is like we have only 40 minutes. I know that you have some work as well. So I'm going to end